This is Dread from Epic Builds. In today's video topic, we're going to be going over my Serpent Strike Beastmaster 2.0. Recently, I made a top 5 videos that I love the most, and Serpent Strike Beastmaster was one of them. So back in the day, I actually hit rank 1 Beastmaster with this build, as the competition was not too high and it was accidental. Now, Beastmaster builds have evolved a little bit, but this build I believe is still going to be the strongest. Now, what we're doing is we're utilizing Serpent Strike to scale our poisons into insane amounts of territory, talking about insane amounts of DPS, like even close to 500,000 on budget gear. Now, this build also is one of the tankier builds I've ever played, featuring max dodge while also a lot of DR as well, making it almost impossible to die with this build sometimes. Now, one of the biggest issues with the old version of Serpent Strike Beastmaster is you were pretty much forced to run a Bleeding Heart. Why is that? Well, inside Beastmaster and Primalists and all that, there was no way to leech from your poison. So you have to look for outside sources to leech from your poison for sustain. So for instance, in this case, you utilized a Bleeding Heart, as that's the only source of global leech outside of Primalist, for Primalist. So you could leech from your poisons and get an insane amount of sustain, as if you did not know, dots and ailment leech is insane. But with this build, we solved that problem because of the certain things they added these few patches. So they added Warcry. So Warcry is a skill that we're utilizing to auto-cast our Maelstroms for us. It also gives us a discount on said Maelstrom. So instead of 6 Maelstrom stacks and being always out of mana, we're at 8 stacks and never really out of mana. And the reason why this is so strong is because Warcry gives you 300 healing every single time you use it as a base. Now, you can actually stack that with healing effectiveness. I believe in the video I have about 200% healing effectiveness, so every single time I use Warcry, I get about 900 HP. And if you have better idols than I do, you can definitely get that all the way up to your max HP. So whenever you use Warcry, you go back up to full health every 5 seconds. Now, we're also utilizing the healing nodes on Maelstrom. So if you're at 8 stacks of Maelstrom, each one heal for 6 per second. So if you're 8, you'll heal 48 per second. And you have 200% healing effectiveness I had, you'll be at 150 health per second. That pretty much replaces all of the leech that we would have gotten from Bleeding Heart. This combined with Warcry definitely makes the build way better than it used to be. It also gives us a lot more utility as well, as Warcry gives us immunity for a second after use. It also gives us Berserk stacks, which gives us an insane amount of attack speed, allowing us to do insane amounts of single target damage, as if you did not know, the way Serpent Strike works is it gains percentage damage over time each time you've attacked recently. Why this is so strong is because you can put all of your nodes into attack speed and get insane amounts of increased damage over time for your poisons, ideally scaling your damage, so you don't have to actually run percentage damage on any of your gear. This is also combined with Aspect of the Viper stacking. So Aspect of the Viper is a buff provided by the Beastmaster tree that gives us 100% chance to poison and 100% increased damage over time, while also giving us 50% increased effect with poisons. Now you can get increased effect of Aspect of the Viper, which will be a multiplicative modifier to all these stats. So if you have 100% increased Aspect of the Viper effect, you'll go to 100% increased poison effect, 200% poison chance, and 200% increased damage over time, which is absolutely nuts. And this all combined allows you to pump out some of the strongest poisons in the game. The only build I believe that outpoisons this without using companions is going to be the Lich build that I showcase as well. Especially considering that with this package, we're tanky as all hell thanks to all the dodge we have. With that being said, let's get into the build now, shall we? Alright, here we are in game with the Serpent Strike Primalist. The name is Noodle Strike for obvious reasons, because we are having a noodle on our streak. Now for skills here, we're going to be utilizing Serpent Strike. So the first few nodes that are important is we grab 2 nodes, Travel into Plague Bearer. and 4 nodes into Scorpion Strikes. You're granted increased poison damage for 4 seconds when you use Serpent Strike. Now we're also utilizing that in combination with 4 points travel into Nagasa Venom, 1 point travel into Venomous Intent, and then 5 points into Chrono Strike for increased global damage over time for 4 seconds when you use Serpent Strike. Now, so the way this works is every single time you've attacked in the last 4 seconds gives you increased damage. Now, obviously, once you get a lot of attack speed, especially with all of our buffs and such, you get into insane amounts of territory of increased damage. It's like about 2,000%, which is absolutely nuts. So, and with good gear, this could even be hitting even harder. Now, for the last few points, we grab 5 points into Primal Reflex. You're granted dodge rating for 4 seconds when you use Serpent Strike. This allows us to stack dodge, as you can tell, pretty much allowing us to face tank most things in the game, which is pretty cool, right? Now, for the other skills, we're utilizing Warcry. So we grab 1 point travel into Staggering Roar, 1 point travel into Kinetic Scream, 2 points travel into Shredding Howl, and then 1 point into Shallow Breath, as we want to Warcry every 5 seconds. We don't care about the stun, freeze, or fear, so that doesn't really matter. Then we grab 1 point travel into Juggernaut, although this is very strong, giving the 1 second of 1 second of invulnerability, making up for the fact that, you know, we have to actually stop and cast it. 1 point into Berserker, 2 points travel into Brutality, then 3 points into Fury Strike, so that when we've Warcried recently, we get a Berserker set, which increases our attack speed, which is really good for single target, which makes up for the fact that we're reducing this for a different skill. Then we're grabbing 3 points into Breath of Atera, so we are grabbing about 122% increased healing effectiveness right now, but we can actually grab 4 idols that are like this with a shit ton of healing effectiveness, so this is the low end of healing effectiveness that we could have, which means that Warcry, at the very least right now, heals us for 600 right now, which is insane because that's almost half of our HP. And then when we're at low life, which we most of the time are, because we're an endurance stacking based class, with obviously we're going to be grabbing Berserker as well, we'll be at low life all the time. So this will triple the effect, which will pretty much like always heal us to full every single time. We grab 1 point into Purging Shout for cleansing ailments, very nice in those chill and slow monoliths, keeps you on the prowl. Then 4 points into Whirlpool, it gives us 4 stacks of Maelstrom on use and minus 50% of the Maelstrom costs, so that it's really cheap. So if you just keep spamming Warcry, you will get up to 8 stacks of Maelstrom, which gives you a lot of dodge and stuff, as you'll see. 3 points into Whirlpool for the duration, so you get up to 8 stacks. 3 points into Sleet-Footed for the flat dodge, which will affect all of our other dodge. 4 points into Calm for the increased mana efficiency, as we want to be able to pack this as much as possible. 5 points into Arc Chill, so that we chill enemies around us, giving us a large amount of defensive layer here. Then 3 points to Healing Wind. Like I said, with our healing effectiveness, this brings us a lot of flat healing per second. Then we grab 1 point into Power of the Storm and 1 point to Energize, so that when we walk past targets, it procs our haste on hit inside the Beastmaster tree, because you don't want to take all 10 points of this, otherwise it's a waste. So that's why we grab that. Also, stacks poisons for us, because a lot of our poison chance is global, so it gives us extra poison stacks. And then you just have a throwaway point, so I put it into Energized. Now, we also have Tornado. Tornado, this is the stereotypical Tornado setup. The most important part is we get 10% movement speed, and then we get 21% increase attack and cast speed. That's the most important part. Everything else is meant to make it into a buff so that it stays on you. Normally, I auto-cast them. You can auto-cast them as well using the Numlock trick. Then for Ice Thorns, it's the stereotypical crit avoid setup. So mainly it's just there to cap our crit avoid. Most of the time, you just need to get 1 crit avoid mod and you're 100% crit avoid all the time, which is insanely strong, mind you, and it's 0 mana thanks to Emblem of Might. And that's pretty much it for the skills. Now let's talk about the passives. So inside the base Primalist tree, we're grabbing 8 points into Natural Attunement for extra res, 5 points into Gift of the Wilderness for flat HP, 5 points into Hunter's Restoration for the 10% increased health, and then 1 point into Ancient Call for more HP. Eventually, you'd want to be grabbing 5 points into Berserker once you get a few more levels. I'm only level 81, so you have like 20 levels to play with this build, which is insane. Then, and Shaman, we take 5 points into Silent Protector for the access to Tornado, and the increased mana regen does assist it so that when we do throw down our totem, it makes up for the mana, right? Then we would grab 5 points into Timic Fury once we're level 100, etc. for even more attack speed when we throw down our Frenzy Totem. It's even more attack speed. Now for the Beastmaster tree, we grab 8 points into Earth Sign Strength for damage taken from nearby enemies, very strong. 4 points into Boar Heart, 5 points into Porcine Constitution, so that we have a 30% DR Bow or Heart, which is insane. Aspect of the Boar is absolutely insane for any primal spell, always include it. 5 points travel into Call of the Pack for the HP, because why not? 3 points into Primal Strength, so that we proc Aspect of the Boar on our melee hit, so that we always have it up on bosses and stuff, which is insanely strong. Just 30% DR for being melee. Insane, right? 5 points into Hawkwings, so we get haste chance on hit, so we can move faster through Monoliths, because if you did not know, Primalist does not have a good movement skill, so it needs to stack movement speed to feel better. You're going to be grabbing 8 points into Life of the Wilderness for the Vitality and the Endurance threshold. This is one of the best nodes in the entire game, as it gives you an insane amount of EHP for free. 10 points into Avian Shelter, which gives us a lot of endurance threshold, while also helping us cap our Fizz resistance. This did not exist back in the day, which for our old Serpent Strike build, which would have been really nice back in the day. 10 points into Viper Fangs with increased melee attack speed. Like I said, attack speed is a multiplicative modifier to your damage, because it's not only affecting how many poisons you put on the target, it's also affecting how much damage you have as well with the increased damage, but it's also affecting how much dodge you have, which means you can face tank things more, which means you can deal more damage. Absolute huge amount of synergy. Then 10 points into Rattlesnake, so we can get the increased poison effect granted. So this attaches to Aspect of the Viper as one of the buffs, so that when we grab Aspect of the Viper on our gear, we get a lot of increased poison. So as you can tell, right now our poison damage is at 75, right? That sounds pathetic, right? But when I get Aspect of the Viper, bumps all the way up to 298. And to prove it, we take off our helmet and our chest. We attack again, we only go to like 233. So our chest and our helm are effectively giving us 40 extra flat poison damage on top of, like, obviously as well, gives us a lot of increased poison chance as well on top of that. So Aspect of the Viper is absolutely nuts. One of the main reasons this build works, otherwise this build would not work. And for the last few points, like I mentioned, you'd probably want to grab Totemic Fury, you'd probably want to grab Berserker, and then you probably want to grab Barkskin inside the Druid tree, so that you can sacrifice one of the suffixes on one of your pieces of gear and just put it somewhere else, as we are endurance cap, but you could just take somewhere, it's like probably endurance from somewhere, or helmet or something like that, and then put it somewhere else, which is very strong. Now, for our gearing, for idols, so there's a perfect kind of idol. We want increased healing effectiveness, not increased minion healing effectiveness, but we want increased healing effectiveness, like this prefix, on top of increased Aspect of the Viper effect. You want 4 of these. That's all you want. You don't want anything else. You want 4 of these. Then obviously healing effectiveness 1 by 1 to put into your slots, and probably some res to help you cap your resistances. That's like all you want. Anything with Aspects of the Viper on it, but mainly something like this, right? With the healing, because these both can be on the same idol, which is absolutely insane. Now, for a helmet, we grab increased Aspect of the Viper effect. We grab Dex here, because if you did not know, Serpent Strike gets increased poison chance on melee hit per point of Dex, which is absolutely insane. So we want as much Dex as humanly possible. I didn't get to get it on this helmet, but that's because it's fractured. Then Endurance, increased HP. For our amulet, we want increased healing effectiveness. So we don't need to waste any slots on increased damage on our gear, so we can actually go for increased mana regeneration, so that we can sustain all of the mana that we're going to be spending on Warcry, which was not a thing back in the day. Then dodge and dodge percentage to help out our dodge to get up to max dodge. Then we grab on our spear, increase attack speed, increase damage, and poison chance on hit. You know you do not need an exalted. Yes, there is a better base for this. I think it's the Najinta base, as it gives you more than 1.8 base attack rate, which would be better for you. So I'm just using this because I want an excuse to use my exalted gear that I find. And then for chest, we want the wild armor because we want as much movement speed as possible. Dexterity, like I mentioned before, increased Viper effect. And then dodge and dodge. That flat dodge that you see right there could be increased health, give us even more health. Probably a good idea. It just dropped like this, so I had to craft with what I had. Then for the ring, we want a gold ring because it helps us cap our Ellie res. As you can tell, we're not even capped on Ellie res yet. Dexterity, mana regen. Damage, increase, HP, and then void res. Well, just res. Then for our belt, we actually grab a dodge on potion use belt, as it helps us get to max dodge, and then health. You could obviously run increased poison damage if you're rich, but a T15 belt will do just fine. Since this build pretty much stacks its own damage, you don't need to run damage anywhere else. Mainly, you just want dex. That's the most important thing. Now, we're using a Siphon of Anguish, so you must be wondering, why am I grabbing 5 points into this when this would be better? Well, Chrono Strike scales both of our dots, while Scorpion Strikes does not. So our Doom Ring is giving us a decent amount of damage. So we're getting to like 30,000 there without much investment. But if we actually put on the Doom Ring and get some Doom stacks, we can get up to like 100k instantly. Thanks to our Void Ring. It is a lot of our DPS. Insanely strong. Let me see if I can kick it. There you go. Yeah, it's insanely strong because since it has such a high amount of base damage, it scales with our increased damage so strongly, right? So Siphon Anguish is definitely the best in slot because it gives us Leech, which we would not have had, but it gives us Leech for single target since we're doing so much damage with our Doom that we leech back from the Siphon of Anguish. We also get, of course, the leech rate for even more leech, and then the increased movement speed. This is like almost the perfect freaking ring. If that Doom effect would have rolled a little bit better, it would have been absolutely positively perfect. Now we grab Wing Guards. This build is useless without this unique, as having the increased melee attack speed and the flat dodge is almost essential for the build, and also getting that extra endurance. It's very hard to play it without, as you can tell, because we lose a lot of attack speed, and attack speed's very strong, turns out, for this build. And then for the boots, Dex, movement speed, HP, dodge. You want Dex. Like I said, I'm missing a lot of Dex. Then for a relic, you want Dex plus the Serpent Strike, so we can grab more nodes. Mainly, you would grab one node into Primal Reflex, and you'd grab one node into Primal Reflex, so we get even more dodge. And then if you had like +3, you'd probably grab the rest of the increased damage. And then resistance, you're on the resistance base, perfect, right? That's pretty much it for the gearing. With that being said, thank you all for watching, and have a wonderful rest of your day wherever you're at, and bye!